Welcome. Today, we're taking a really deep dive into the profound architecture of ADHD partnerships. We're unpacking a brilliant Dutch document known as the Avocado Manifesto. Our goal for this explainer? We want to move entirely away from that exhausting cycle of blame and instead actually build a truly systemic understanding of what happens when two very different nervous systems live under the exact same roof. Okay, let's dive right into this.
So let me start by asking a question that echoes through the hallways of pretty much every neurodivergent relationship. Why does everyday life feel so impossible to predict? Why do you wake up not quite knowing what the emotional weather of the house is going to be that day? If you've ever asked yourself that, well, you are exactly where you need to be.
Part 1. The avocado metaphor, inside the unpredictable.
Think about it. From the outside, an avocado looks exactly the same every single day. But when you actually cut it open, you never really know what you're going to find. I mean, we've all paid extra for guacamole only to find a sad, bruised avocado inside, right? Well, that unpredictability is the daily reality here. It might be perfectly ripe, it might be rock hard, or it might be totally bruised. And it's absolutely crucial to realize that the partner with ADHD often feels exactly like that avocado. They wake up not quite knowing what state their own internal world will be in today either.
Part 2. Two nervous systems, one house. The collision of needs.
So here's the fundamental collision we have to look at. The non-ADHD partner relies heavily on predictability to feel safe. They need plans, routines, and clear patterns. Meanwhile, the ADHD partner desperately needs space to exist without judgment because they are managing a brain that they literally have to manually regulate all day. Tragically, what makes one feel safe, like a strict daily schedule, acts as a suffocating cage to the other.
It is so important to internalize that your daily clashes are not personal character flaws. Let's say a forgotten cup on the counter sparks a massive argument. You aren't actually fighting each other. You're fighting an unchosen difference. It's really just the friction of two entirely different operating systems colliding in the hallway. Seeing things from this bird's eye view, it changes everything.
If we're going to heal this system, we absolutely must shift our vocabulary. We have to move away from the concept of guilt because guilt just creates this toxic dynamic of victims and perpetrators. Instead, we need to talk about transference. And transference is really just a fancy word for the unchosen, inherited patterns and the emotional baggage that we both carry into the house from our pasts.
Which brings us to the core law of this entire architecture. It forces us to ask a totally different question. Not, who is at fault, but rather, what generational echo is being passed down here, and who is going to bravely step up and actually interrupt it? It's all about taking responsibility for the pattern the moment you finally see it.
Part 3. The other without ADHD, the silent accountant.
We have to be really honest here and distinguish between love and sacrifice, because from the outside, they kind of look the same. Both involve giving, right? But love feels like an open heart. It leaves you feeling whole and fulfilled. Sacrifice, on the other hand, feels like a cage. It slowly drains your essence while you wait in silence for some unseen recognition that, let's be real, rarely comes. The manifesto outlines 7 distinct signals of this kind of self-loss. Maybe you've noticed that your own agenda has become purely reactive to your partner's moods. Or perhaps peace actually feels strangely unsafe because you're just nervously waiting for the next shoe to drop. You might even find yourself constantly fantasizing about just getting away. Listen, if you resonate with these, it doesn't mean the relationship is broken. What it means is that the distribution of weight in the house is dangerously skewed and it desperately needs balancing.
Part 4. The bearer with ADHD, the invisible orchestra.
10. That is a really crucial number here. Imagine a blunt sentence lands in the kitchen, maybe over something as tiny as that forgotten coffee cup we mentioned earlier. The non-ADHD partner hears exactly one sharp remark, but what they completely miss are the 10 chaotic thoughts, the 3 rapid calculations, and the sudden wave of sheer panic that the ADHD partner experienced in the 2 seconds right before speaking. The bluntness isn't a lack of love, guys. It's a lack of processing time.
And then there's the incredibly heavy price of masking. People with ADHD spend all day out in the world masking their traits, which requires an immense, invisible caloric burn. It is exhausting. So what looks like sudden withdrawal, silence, or just an emotional crash at the end of the day, that isn't them checking out of the relationship. It's actually a profound proof of trust. Home is the only place they feel safe enough to finally drop that exhausting mask of normalcy and just land.
Part 5. Explanation versus excuse, the collision of languages.
This leads us right into a devastating conversational spiral that happens all the time in these homes. The ADHD partner desperately tries to offer an explanation for an outburst, just trying to show their internal world. But the non-ADHD partner, who is still reeling and feeling the sting of the impact, only hears a convenient excuse. The solution here isn't learning how to argue better. It's about utilizing what's called the key of sequence.
It works like this. Step 1, you meticulously acknowledge the painful impact first. Validate the hurt. Make them feel heard. Only then, in step 2, do you explain the internal chaos that caused it. By simply reversing this order, you transform what sounds like a defensive excuse into an invitation for deep intimacy. Recognition opens the ear. Explanation without recognition, that completely closes it.
It's also absolutely vital to realize that the tense silence following an outburst, it is rarely cold indifference. More often than not, it is a crushing, decades-old shame that has just temporarily lost its voice. Meeting that kind of shame with sharp criticism is literally like touching a burn with fire. Timing and tone are absolutely everything here. Part 6. Boundary without hardening. Boundaries as self-respect.
So how on earth do we bring both wings together? Well, the constitution of the boundary declares that you can completely and deeply accept how your partner's brain works while simultaneously refusing to accept the boundless emotional cost it extracts from you. Think of it this way. A boundary is not a demand on them, it is a protective decision about yourself.
Ultimately, an ADHD diagnosis powerfully explains the behavior, right? But it definitely does not give a blank check for damage. Explanation is only the first half of maturity. Taking responsibility is the second half. Both partners must actively take ownership of their impact if they want to turn the house from a waiting room back into a home. As balance finally starts to return to the system, there has to be space for what is beautifully called grief without an enemy. This means giving yourself permission to mourn the effortless, easy relationship you originally envisioned, but without blaming your partner for its absence. You're mourning a picture in your head, not a broken promise.
I'll leave you with this final, overarching question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. When you look at your own relationship's architecture from above, stepping completely out of the blame game, where do you still stand as yourself? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. See you next time.